I think those of us who actually make our way out of the church, whether we know it or not, we're called out of the church because much like Ashanti, much like Abby, you couldn't like no, like how we get on TikTok now, you see deconstructing TikToks and there's so much. I would have never clicked on any of those videos. I wouldn't have watched them, right? Because again, that's self-surveillance. You're letting evil in, you're letting the devil in, all these things. And so I feel like the people who make their way out of the church, whether they know it or not, I feel like universe, source, God, whatever you believe in, calls you out. And no amount of facts you can give us, no amount of, biblical history you can share, we wouldn't believe any of that. Because for me, religion is deeply emotional. It's an emotional attachment to a thing more than it is your brain. Now, because Abby is a lawyer, and I think just the way that she thinks and the way that she weighs things,
Yeah.
she probably had a different experience coming out. But those of us who are emotionally tied to this religion, Christianity, in whatever form or font you do it in, it's such an emotional attachment that you feel like you can't let the devil in. So you can't let doubt come in. You can't let naysayers come in. And so we're so conditioned to turn that off, to not listen, to not watch, to not engage, that if you make your way out of the church, I really believe your higher self, whatever you believe, is calling you out of that place. And one thing I've had to be very patient with, because I feel like in the way that Christianity has made us so judgmental and hard on people, deconstructors can be the same way about Christians. And I've had to learn that for some people in this life, their walk is going to be with religion. And you're not going to talk them out of it. You're not going to ration them out of it. That is their walk. That is their journey here. And for some of us, it's not. Some of us make our way out. And when we start talking, I believe the people who listen to the deconstructors, because the faithful are not. I promise you, the faithful are not clicking on those videos. The faithful are not reading those books. The faithful are not watching the shows. They're not watching the interviews. We don't let it in. But I feel like the people who have seeds of doubts are listening to us, right? They're listening to the conversations that are being had on TikTok. They're listening to us. And that is their small calling out of the religion. And I feel like until you have that, because I said to you, I didn't leave the religion because somebody convinced me that it was a cult, that somebody convinced me that the way that I was thinking about faith was wrong. Nobody was doing that to me. It was just me having a conversation with me and being honest with myself. Because another thing that Christianity will tell you is when you have doubt, when you have questions, it's the devil. It's not Christ. It's not godly. Like you're supposed to go to your pastor or go to the deacon and talk to somebody about that. And I don't know. I was just wise enough to just sit with myself and say, what is going on with me? Because somebody outside of me can't tell me what's going on with me. I have to know what's going on with me. And I feel like I was called out of the faith. And I feel like those of us who have doubts are being called out. You're not going to convince a Christian. You see devout, it's funny because I have so many devout black women that follow me that are devout Christians. And I just go, are y'all glutton for punishment or are y'all questioning? Because I don't mince how I feel about and I say this, and I said this too, that religion and white supremacy is hand in hand. You can't separate these things because white supremacy used religion as the bludgeon to get us to submit to white supremacy. And a lot of us as black people, that's how we wield white supremacy. We wield it through religion and we don't even understand that. And so I feel like the people who sit and listen to us, doubt is there. Doubt is there. And they're being called out too. And maybe they're just afraid to leave. They don't know what it's going to be on the other side of that. Because another thing I told you, Aaron, is that leaving religion is not just leaving religion. You're leaving community behind. You're leaving community behind. And for Ashanti, who is Jehovah's Witness, you're leaving family behind. And people want to stay connected to that. I feel like a lot of people are still in, whether they're Jehovah's Witness or Abby's Baptist or me Pentecostal. I feel like a lot of people are just staying in that because they don't want to lose community. They don't believe it anymore. They just want to be in community with the people they love and know.
And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation because, I'm a believer. I believe, but I'm not religious, right? And I
That's how it
feel,
starts.
I know you told me that. You told me that. And I feel like this is, it's like it's going around. I feel like what you're saying, you got a lot of people who are watching you, who are interested, who are questioning. After my episode with Ashanti last week, I mean, that was a lot of the commentary underneath. I even did a poll about, did you leave and never look back? Did your faith never waver? Are you thinking about it but have guilt? Are you still there? And overwhelmingly, it was like, I left and I never looked back, right? I did it in the Facebook group. I did it in my YouTube community. So I understand we are not like our grandparents when it comes to this right
Yeah,
now.
I think there's
And
a sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a few things, Tammy, actually, when you were speaking, really made me think because I think sometimes there's push or pull or maybe a bit of both. Because for me, it was not doubt. I literally was devout, probably up until a year after I was punished for being raped. But what I think was the pull was the clarity. It wasn't the doubt. I became very
Right.
clear
Yeah.
on the organizational aspect of religion. Because what that experience taught me was that religion is a system of power, whereas I'd been taught it's all about faith,
And love.
spirituality, love, and God's relationship with you. So I'm very similar some ways to Abby because I actually studied law and I was very kind of legalistic in my mind. And I remember thinking, hold on a minute, this organization has policies and processes that they don't want to tell me. And because I'm a woman, I'll never know them. And so it was more so clarity that started to pull me away than doubt. There was a clarity about, well, if everything's based on the Bible, they should be able to tell me where in the Bible this process is. Where is this? Like it was very much a clarity pull. But I think some of the things that also keep people in is that obviously that scripture about do not lean upon your own understanding.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
of course, when people start to discover things, when they start to think, whether the information is presented to them or they find it, your instinct, because of conditioning and program linked to your salvation, is do not lean upon your own understanding. And then, of course, you add in spiritual bypassing. So even if your life is miserable, even if you've had terrible experiences, you are in the habit and the practice of spiritually bypassing, and you're
Yes.
around other
Yes.
people who are doing the same thing. So actually, it's not easy at all, as you were saying, to leave because everything, the gravitational pull of those things,
Yeah.
that's what I used to call it. It was a gravitational pull that kept pulling me back in despite the reality of what I was seeing and what I experienced.
Yeah. I saw that interview with, or the clip that Aaron put up on TikTok of you talking about your rape, and I was like, oh my God, because the thing is, I was raped by a minister, and I think about this now. I was 17 years old, and I think about this now, and I was like, what was happening to me? Like, because at this point, I was really getting myself back into church, and I remember being raped on Saturday night and showing up to service on Sunday where this man was preaching. And I think back now, like I think about that now and I go, like, what kind of conditioning has to happen to you that the man can rape you on Saturday and be in the pulpit on Sunday preaching?
Abby.
Purity culture makes us
Ashamed.
perfect targets for sexual assault and rape. And the issue that kept happening in my mind was the legal system offers us the least amount of protection available. And even within the legal system, spousal rape is not allowed. But yet, I go to church and they tell me it's perfectly fine all the time. I'm in Sunday school where these women are constantly telling me that if my husband needs it, then I should submit to his desires. And if the law outside of church offers me the least amount of protection, then why can't the church do the same? I unfortunately joined the ranks of both of you. And when I went to church for reprieve and relief, the overwhelming consensus was, this was your fault. This was your fault because of a variety of things, because you haven't been chaste, because you need to concede to the demands of your partner, because you didn't pray enough, because you weren't pious enough. There were so many ways for it to be my fault. But I was able to look beyond that, because no matter how much I had questioned church up until that point, it still had a hold of me. You know, ultimately, it took a threat of harm to someone else for me to feel like I'm important enough now that I can leave. And there was also, I had logic issues with church for the longest time. But surprisingly, it was dinosaurs that really logicked me over the edge. I was in a Bible study class that was called Sharing Jesus Without Fear, because this particular church allowed us to have 6-week long classes with like different topics. And I really loved that about it. I was like, well, this is an educational church. And we're sitting in class, and one of the members was sharing how she had attempted to share Jesus with somebody at her job. The first red flag that went off in my head was, nobody wants to be subjected to that at work. And then the second thing was, she said, because could you believe, she believes that dinosaurs walk the earth and that we evolved from other beings. She doesn't believe, and I had always logicked myself into the Adam and Eve story by believing it was simply like a story, like, you know, a Greek mythology, if you will, like a way that people conceptualized the world at that time, because I did not know that people literally believed the story of Adam and Eve. So when she started, I'm writing in my book, like writing my little notes, and she started saying that about the dinosaurs, and I looked up and was like, oh no. I said, oh my goodness, what have I done? And then I started going only to church for praise and worship and leaving. And then, well, at first it was like just going to Sunday school and praise and worship. Then it was just going to praise and worship. And then eventually I just wasn't going anymore.